FedEx has become the first major company to sue the US government over President Trump's sweeping tariffs. The logistics giant filed its case at the US Court of International Trade, asking for a full refund of the tariffs it had paid. On Friday, the US Supreme Court ruled that the US president had acted illegally when he used emergency powers to impose the tariffs. More than 1,000 importers have filed similar cases at the trade court, with many more expected to follow. Abigail Hall is a professor of economics at the University of Tampa in the US state of Florida. Welcome to DW. For many of us, FedEx is just a shipping company. So what makes its refund lawsuit so significant?
Sure. So there are a couple of things we could look at here. So one is just the scale of the refunds that are being requested. You're talking about an estimated $130 to $175 billion that were collected over the last year under the IEEPA. But with FedEx specifically, it sounds a little confusing because people think of FedEx as just shipping. But what a lot of people don't know is that FedEx and similar companies pay tariff duties up front and then subsequently bill their customers. So they do have legal claim that they have been harmed by these tariffs because ultimately FedEx, depending on where transactions occurred in time, could very well be left holding the purse, so to speak, for these tariffs.
And so if it does win this case, then what does FedEx then do? Does it just come up with a big briefcase full of receipts to the US Treasury and say, can we have this back, please?
So here is where things get unclear. So historical precedent when it comes to tariff refunds or rebates have largely depended on kind of how things are litigated to determine who's eligible for a refund or a rebate and how those are conducted. Now, in theory, the Treasury Department or Customs and Border Patrol, who are named specifically in this lawsuit, could issue sort of kind of a declaration or a statement about how these refunds are going to be paid, and then it would be up to retailers like FedEx and others to provide the necessary documentation. Now, for people who do a lot of importing and exporting, this type of data would be things that they would, in theory, have readily available.
We've seen, though, in this administration, a reluctance to do as it's told, essentially. So what you seem to be saying is that even if FedEx wins this case, the US government gets to decide how, if, and whether it gets refunded, the claimants get refunded.
So when the Supreme Court issued its ruling about the International Economic Emergency Power Act and its tariff granting or not tariff granting authority last week, they left open this question of rebates. So that's really why you're seeing now this string of lawsuits in the international or in the Court of International Trade, because that is the system that's going to make the determination about what types of refunds have to be repaid. But you're likely talking about years of litigation and trying to figure out exactly how this is going to play out, not just for FedEx, but for, as you mentioned, now the more than 1,000 companies who filed suit against the US government.
All right. So FedEx brings this case, it gets a ruling, but then it's likely to have to wait years before it sees any money back, if at all.
That's certainly within the realm of possibility. So one of the things that we've seen is that when it comes to tariffs specifically, litigation has been the name of the game, as they've been on again and off again, and rates have been increased, decreased, increased again, and decreased again. You've seen kind of a similar wave of legal action. And so I anticipate that you will be seeing that not only related to the court case that was recently ruled on by the US Supreme Court, but also with regard to the new tariffs that the administration announced on the heels of that Supreme Court ruling.
Can I ask which way you think the court will rule? Do you think FedEx will actually win this case?
Given that the Supreme Court ruled that the president did not have broad sweeping authority to impose tariffs of this magnitude, I would anticipate that companies are going to be entitled to a refund of those tariffs. Now, again, who exactly is eligible and how those refunds will be dispersed is still up for debate. But I would find it very difficult, given the Supreme Court ruling, that the Court of International Trade would come back and say that the administration could keep the funds that they had collected.
Thanks for talking us through that, Professor. Professor Abigail Hall from the University of Tampa in the United States.